Welcome to the group chat by Footy Accumulators with our friends from Betfair, Alan McInally, Will Perry with you. Look, we're into March already. I can see the end of the season, the light at the end of the tunnel, and the Euros will be here before we know it, and then the Olympics, and then we'll be back again for another season. It's non-stop, Al. Good to see you, mate. I want to start by talking about Gareth Bale, okay? Bale is back, baby, or is he?
At last.
Look, I mean...
At last.
It's crazy now to think that there is a conversation that Spurs could even have him permanently or keep him for next season. That wasn't in the mix at all, was it? 3-4 weeks ago. He scored a brilliant goal in the Europa League against Wolfsberger. Scored a cracking goal. I mean, the second one against Burnley. And Spurs are looking dangerous all of a sudden. He's only 31 years old, Gareth Bale. There's still more to come from him. Are you surprised that it's taken him this long to do it at Spurs, second time round?
Yeah. I mean, all we were hearing was, well, he's not quite fit enough yet. I'm like, he's been there 3 months. Come on, Gareth. Seriously. And by the way, not only are they now talking about, will he stay for another season or we might get him permanently? They weren't talking like that as if he's warming up against Burnley. It's only off the back of the performance. Now, you know he's obviously got it in there. And maybe it's taken him, I still can't believe it's taken him that amount of time to get to speed. Although, he has been out a while not playing. And obviously the injuries is something that he obviously, takes care of himself with. But he certainly looks really good. I mean, he looks really good. I mean, everything he did, his touch was good. And the goal he got, the second goal, when he really bends it into the corner and gets it turning around defenders before they can even get close to him, it really was back to Gareth Bale. Or not necessarily Gareth Bale, it's back to being a top international performing football player, because that's what you expect from him. Now, if you go to Real Madrid, I don't think it's too, and certainly the way he played at Spurs before he left, I don't think it's too much for even me to ask as an ex-football player. I expect more from Gareth Bale because I've seen him do it. It's all whether Gareth wants to either make himself do it or put him in a place that he's in a position where he is quicker than everybody, or he gets the cross in, or he gets a shot on target. But it is a little bit in my head, and I'm loath to criticise him in any way because, I like Gareth Bale, I genuinely do. But I'm like, at last, Gareth, seriously, mate. Seriously. We've been waiting for this. The reason you came back to Spurs and everybody was excited, even if you weren't a Tottenham fan, there's no way you weren't like, Gareth Bale coming back to the Premier Division. Brilliant. We haven't seen anything. And all of a sudden, over the last couple of weeks, just maybe. But I'm still like, jury's out a bit. Let's just see if he does it next week, in the following week, and then I'll say to you, yeah, Spurs should try and get him permanently.
Well, look, I think everyone, not even Spurs fans, and I'm talking as a City fan here, everyone wanted to see that front three, to see what they were like, Bale, Son and Kane. At one point they had 4 or 5 of them, including Moura and Dele Alli on the pitch as well. So with all of those guys kind of getting back into form, and I know that Son and Kane have been there for most of the season anyway in form, but with those 5 players, can they fire Spurs towards top 6, top 4? Because they're not out of the picture yet, Al.
No, but that's where they should be, Will. And if they don't get there, I think the manager will take a lot of criticism, because you can't have players in your team like you've just mentioned and finish 7th or 8th. I'm sorry. You can't. You've got a goalkeeper that's won the World Cup, who it's not my favourite anyway, but you need a good goalie. You've got a couple of centre-halves, certainly Vertonghen, who should be better. They've just got players all over the pitch that they should not be in 7th or 8th or 9th or whatever. They should always be around 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then trying to bridge the gap to go even further. I mean, for God's sakes, I know that Virgil van Dijk and Gomez, or with Matip and Robertson and Trent Alexander, defensively they were brilliant, and maybe Spurs don't have that. But Liverpool always had then the Salah, Firmino, Mane. So you've just said Bale, Kane, and Son. I mean, there's no way you should be finishing 7th or 8th with them in the team. Seriously. Even if you and I played in the middle of the park and all we could do was put it over the top, the 3 of them are certainly getting us a goal a game. So I'm actually a little disappointed in Spurs. Genuinely I am. And it has to come down to the manager, because he's going to take the flak. But if they finish 7th or 8th with those 3 in top and Gareth Bale getting back to the kind of form, then that ain't acceptable for me as a Spurs player, as a Spurs fan, and I don't think they'll be happy.
Manchester United, Al, a second in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But listen to this. their Premier League record, okay, is the worst against the Big Six this season compared to all the other established Big Six sides. They failed to score in 6 consecutive league games against a Big Six opposition. So that is so confusing, isn't it? That you're still kind of in the title race, if they can say that they're still in the title race, if City haven't won it already. But to be second in the table when you're bottom 5 points from those Big Six matches all season. They're such a confusing side, aren't they? And that has to change if they're going to get back into, next season and to really have a go at whether that's Liverpool, City or Chelsea.
Yeah, well, if you don't win those games, you don't win the title. So there you go. So let's put that one to bed. Their away form has been really good. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer deserves a huge pat in the back for that. I genuinely don't understand how when Lindelof crashes into whoever it was he crashed into and Twanzebe scores the header, that's a goal for me. And on Sunday, when it hits somebody's arm, at any other time with VAR the whole season, it's been a penalty.
Yeah, but hold on now. Let me come in with that one.
No,
right?
hang on a minute. If it hits your hand nowadays, listen,
yeah.
Everybody and their granny knows it's not a penalty. It's, of course, the two of them are that frightened of each other. They're doing that so they don't bump into each other. And it hits, who was it? Was it Tammy? Not Tammy. It hits
Callum Hudson-Odoi.
Callum Hudson-Odoi, right? Why is it not a penalty? And I'm on Man United's side here. And I sympathise with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because every other result we've seen on VAR, they're like, oh, it hit his hand, it's a penalty. Now, most of the time it's not. It's a joke. But I've got to say they're a little unlucky. But to go back to the point, and I know, okay, let's just stay on this one then. We'll go back to why they're not beating big teams. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say on the penalty thing, I was going to say, all right, you could argue that could have been a penalty given where we are with this whole penalty situation, right? But at the same time, it would have been soft either way. Is that enough to actually have a shot from 12 yards out at a goalkeeper where it's just sort of touched and we're microscopically looking at it? Is it clear and obvious and all those sorts of things? And my point on that penalty situation is, how can you come out? You're Manchester United. You should be dominating games, dominating teams. I know it's a tricky game against Chelsea at the Bridge, but to be sort of then, nitpicking about little soft penalties at the end of the game, go and win the game outright. Go and be look, of course I'm looking at it from a blue side of things, but go and win a game, go and steamroll a team 4-5-0. So you're not talking about little decisions which didn't go your way.
Yeah, okay, well, we're in sort of, we agree that the whole penalty situation and the whole football thing is a joke at the moment with this VAR, but you're right. Go and stamp your authority. Don't rely on a penalty to win the game and go and win the game 2-0 or 3-1 or something and put them in the back foot that much. And I'm still not a big fan of Dan James yet. I think Dan James is a good championship player, but I'm just not quite sure he's absolutely Man United there. Maybe obviously he's in the fledglings of his career in terms of actually get the opportunity to be a Manchester United football player. And as he grows and gets better and stronger, he'll learn the game more. Will he be more of a problem for opposition teams? Right now, you're like, he's not putting me with a lot of confidence that United are going to go to Chelsea and turn them over.
So look, I asked this one about
Dan James is the type of player, right, at the moment in time at a club like Manchester United, that even if he starts or comes on as a sub, if United are 2 or 3 up, he'll get the 4th goal. He's never getting you the 1st goal or the 2nd. He might get a goal when the team's already packed their bags and halfway down the motorway. He'll get that 3rd or 4th goal. I'm looking for players that come to Manchester United to get the 1st and the 2nd to make sure you go and win the game.
And I don't think Dan James can be blamed in that sense because he's supposed to be a squad player. He's a good squad player, isn't he, for a team? He's not supposed to be someone who's going to go out and win you a league title. And he's young and he's learning, and et cetera, et cetera. But I asked you this question about Everton. How many players then do you think Manchester United are off, all hypothetical, of course, being in contention to go and dominate a league, to go and, challenge those teams which we just mentioned? Are we talking 3, 4, 5, top level players? Is that how far behind they are?
I think there's probably 3 again, and I'm going to throw it. They need a good centre-half. They need someone who will play with Maguire. Now, you know me, I quite like Harry Maguire. I genuinely do. And I know he's not the quickest, and probably Bailly is the quickest of all their centre-backs. But they need to bring someone in who is just better than they've got, with better quality. Simple. You can whatever they get them from, whatever, to be better quality than they have already. Will Pogba be there? Don't know. Martial, I mean, the fact he's still a Man United player is an absolute mystery for me. But they need to bring in, and Cavani, I would imagine they might give Cavani another year, but he's 34. You know, and again, you're relying heavily on Greenwood and Martial and Rashford, who are still relatively young, albeit Rashford's got plenty of experience playing for Manchester United. Because I told you before, they have relied on Marcus Rashford since the boy's been 12 years old. To, okay, not 12, you know what I mean. Since he's been 18, 17, to lead the line for one of the biggest clubs in the world. A complete joke, a nonsense. And you know, there was a bit of stick he got actually early on in the season, giving it, he's, you know, he looks tired and he's got other things outside of Manchester United that's taking his focus away. He's absolutely knackered. But the boy's so tired. He's been doing it for a year and a half when they relied on him so much that they dithered and wondered, oh, I wonder who will get in. And they had an opportunity to bring Sancho in. In fact, somebody said it on Monday night. I can't remember who it was. Might have been Jamie Carragher. They tried to get Jadon Sancho. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They were told it was 108 million. And they offered 100. Seriously. If they needed the other 7, they'd have given them it to get it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And that's what I don't like about Manchester United. I don't think the recruitment's been good. I don't think it's been enough to bring in quality at Manchester United. And that's why you're not beating the big teams on the big Sundays and you're drawn 0-0. Now, it's still a positive you don't lose the game, but you're not winning a title, which is what Man United want.
What can we say about Tammy Abraham at the moment, right? And that his situation at Chelsea. Under Frank Lampard, there was a trajectory, you know, all right, he wasn't playing every single week and, you know, then he brings Werner in, et cetera, but he was getting opportunities. He's exciting. He's 23. He was in the mix for England. Apparently, he's reluctant to discuss a new contract with all this Erling Haaland chat going on. Is there a danger, Al, that Chelsea will suddenly lose these young stars that Frank did so well to build up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every player at every football club is always looking over the shoulder in terms of, okay, we're getting to the end of the season, who are they bringing in? I mean, touch wood, I had a brilliant, fortunate career apart from, well, getting injured at the end. That I didn't then fulfil my opportunities to end my career at, you know, at the place I was in. But when you're at Aston Villa and Celtic and Bayern Munich, every single summer you're like, oh, who are we bringing in? Especially at Bayern. I mean, geez, what was it? You were like, oh, right, okay, I need to reevaluate to a certain extent. But because I was that good, I was all right, so don't worry about it, Will. It wouldn't have bothered. And unless I got injured, I'd have been there for 10 years. But I think Tammy, in the position he's in, because he's not a genuine starter at Chelsea, is he? I mean, he's really not. He was under Frank to a certain point, but Frank still likes Giroud as well, so they kind of carried the can on that one. And Hudson-Odoi was one where I think he was going to go to Bayern, actually, wasn't it? There was a big talk about him actually going to Bayern Munich. So they're obviously looking at a couple of young players that are already there. Reece James, the same. So there is a possibility that if they think they don't have a future at Chelsea Football Club, then I'm sure there'll be plenty of clubs will be looking to take Tammy Abraham. That is for sure.
If you were him, would you be looking to leave right now? I mean, look, we know what his loan spell was like at Aston Villa. He could start at Aston Villa every game with Watkins, couldn't he? Or, you know,
he could.
A club like that.
Absolutely. Go 2. They could easily go 2 up top, the way Villa play, for sure, no problem. The only thing is, I don't know whether he thinks that because he's been back at Chelsea now, he's maybe looking for even bigger opportunities. I'm talking in a European sense in terms of not staying in the Premiership.
Is he good enough, Al?
Well, it hasn't been this season. Now, scoring goals for Villa in the Championship is a lot different than scoring goals for Villa in the Premiership or Chelsea in the Premiership. And it does bring so much more pressures. So maybe the bottom line is, to answer it very quickly, is no, I don't think he is absolutely at that top level. He's a very, very good young player. And incidentally, I was expecting him to be a bit like Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes 18 months ago was like that. You see Harvey Barnes now, he's really unfortunate. He's got injured. It's such a shame for the guy. But he's, you know, physically stronger and looks better and so much more aggressive. And Tammy's always looked as if he's been a bit, not like a beanpole, but you know what I mean? He's very thin.
He's not tall though, isn't he? He's 6'5" or something.
Yeah, he's huge lad, but very, very slight with it almost. And I don't know whether he's even filled into his frame yet as a man. You know, if you know what I mean. And there might still be the best of Tammy Abraham to come. But to answer your question, I don't think he should leave Chelsea yet. I don't think so. I think if there's a contract at Chelsea, I think he should sign it. And there's always the opportunity then for, if you're that good, someone will come in and buy him. Or he will get the opportunity at Chelsea at once. At the moment in time, Will, it's only speculation where Haaland or Mbappe or anybody else is going. So, you can't worry about who's coming to the club until they actually do the business. At the moment in time, he needs to worry about getting in the team and scoring goals.
Al, what do you make of the emergence of Curtis Jones at Liverpool? I know he came on the scene last season. I remember that FA Cup game against Everton, when Liverpool made all sorts of changes. Is he a long-term replacement for Gini Wijnaldum? Where do you see him playing? I know he likes playing in that front three as well, but he seems such a talented kid. He's only just turned 20. And I was adding it up the other day. He's made 43 appearances for Liverpool at the age of 20, which I don't know if that's a lot. Back in your day, it probably wasn't. But given that the stars in front of him there, and, look at Foden now, he had to wait his time, didn't he? And now he's sort of not starting every week, but he's getting more and more chances. For me, Curtis Jones, he's got that confidence, and he already at 20 started to see that maturity as a footballer.
No, I think the 40 appearances or 40 odd is a good return for him, considering the football club you're talking about. Because getting into the Liverpool team over the last 3 years has been, I can't remember any teenager actually getting into the team, if you know what I mean, apart from, the only thing you can say is that I like Klopp and I would trust Klopp. So therefore, I think Curtis Jones must be a good player and have the opportunity to have a wonderful career. Now, whether it's at Liverpool or not is another matter, because there'll be the same circumstances for Curtis Jones as Tammy Abraham at Chelsea. Liverpool are going to be linked with the best players in the world if Klopp can, get them to come to Merseyside. But I do think, in terms of what we've seen so far, I like him because he got a goal the other day, then he gets in the box. He doesn't seem to be outside, that Thiago's job's here or Wijnaldum here, etc. Is he the replacement for Wijnaldum? Maybe, because I don't think Wijnaldum, I think he's on his way, isn't he? It looks as though he's on his way. I don't know where he's going, but it looked as though certainly 6 months ago he was on his way. And the fact that Klopp is happy to play him tells you, well, that he's a good player and he's got something to offer Liverpool. But he is still very young at 20 years old. And again, we might not have seen the best of him, which is good news for Liverpool fans.
Yeah. Can Klopp have the same impact on Curtis Jones that Pep has had on Phil Foden?
I hope so, because that's his job. That's his job. If you get a player from an academy and he breaks in and starts training with your team, you need to start watching him closely and gauge whether what stage he's at and what he's good at and what he's not good at. And that's what you need to work on, because otherwise there's no point in bringing a young player through to make him any better. You just go and spend 25, 30 million pounds on a player, bring him in, and you've got a ready-made replacement for whoever goes the other way. So they'll be working with Curtis Jones for sure. And you can probably see over the last, every time he plays, he seems to take more part in the game, and actually plays a part in the game that makes a difference for Liverpool. That's a huge thing. So the boys obviously get plenty of confidence, and I'm sure Klopp puts the arm round him rather than, kick him in the bum and say, come on, this is what we want. It's more of an arm round him and say, right, come on, blah, 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 etc., etc. This is what we want you to do. But he must be working with them to make him better. And yeah, you're right. Although, to be fair, you're talking about Pep. I did the game on Saturday and Foden wasn't a starter. I thought he was a certainty to start and didn't. So every now and again, he's going to be disappointed because Klopp will juggle the pack and he might not be a starter. But in terms of what he's done so far, you've got to say he's done really well. Looks like a good player, the boy.
When you look at who's going to start for England at the Euros at left back, is it as straightforward as just going, it's obvious, it's Luke Shaw? And I'll throw out a couple of names at you. Look, when Ben Chilwell went to Chelsea, we kind of thought that is his chance now to just make that number 3 spot his own for 10 years, to be Ashley Cole. But obviously, Luke Shaw, and fair play to him, has completely turned his career around. I know there were times when he'd had that rocky relationship with Jose Mourinho, and when he arrived at Manchester United from Southampton, we just thought, well, this is England's left back for the next 10 years, when Chilwell was still emerging at Leicester. I'll throw another name at you from your team, Matt Targett. Matt Targett's had a brilliant season. He's got to be in the mix in terms of at least as a backup for Southgate going to the Euros. But, we're not absolutely blessed for left backs. We've got about 17 right backs coming out of our ears, England. Left backs, not so much. And it's kind of always been a little bit of a problem, the left back position, finding someone who's so talented with that with that left foot. It's a shame we haven't got a Cancelo. But Luke Shaw, you have to take your hat off to him, don't you?
Oh, unbelievably. Unbelievably. I actually thought his time at Man United was done and dusted a year and a half ago. And it looks as though he has worked his tail off. I tell you what, he looks fitter now because he seems to get up and down the pitch so much more. And he's certainly part of Manchester United's success. And incidentally, when you mentioned Matt Targett, I take Matt Targett before Ben Chilwell at the moment. I really, wow. Ben Chilwell has been, £50 million they've spent on him. And you're right, well, it looked as though that was it. He was the left back. And by the way, Shaw must see that. So maybe that was a kick in the pants that he needed. But everything he's done, Luke Shaw, so far this season at Manchester United has been absolutely sensational. And there's 3 starters at Manchester United. One's Harry Maguire, one's Bruno Fernandes, and the other one is Luke Shaw. That's how well he's done. And that's why he'll be the number 1 choice for England at the Euros for sure. Unless he gets injured, Luke, which fingers crossed he won't, unless Chilwell's form becomes a lot better with Chelsea, and Matt's done nothing wrong, and he'll be disappointed if he doesn't get in the squad. I think Luke Shaw is an absolute guaranteed starter. He's that important to England because I think defensively he's been better in terms of smelling danger, but also instead of going to the halfway line, his position now is 10 yards from the opposition's box, which makes a big difference, huge difference. You have to have a couple of centre-halves that will allow you to go on and do that, and a defensive midfield player that will cover for you. But Luke Shaw has just said, every time we go forward, I'm going forward. And if the ball's on the right-hand side and it comes all the way across, they're not going to get out easy because I'm going to make sure I'm there and they can't do that. I think he's an absolute guaranteed starter, Will.
Look, the last year, 18 months has been an absolute shocker. We've lost some greats from the footballing world, Al, and we've lost the great Ian St. John, who joined Liverpool from his hometown team, Motherwell, back in 1961. At the time, listen to this, a club record fee, £37,500. He played 425 games for Liverpool, 118 goals during a decade of service. What a decade it was. The Liverpool fans absolutely adore him. And he won 2 top-flight titles, scored that decisive goal in the FA Cup final in 1965. Liverpool lifted their first FA Cup. As a Scotsman, he's got up there as well. It's a really sad moment for Liverpool and for Scotland and for football in general. Yeah,
82 years old. He and my father, for people who don't know on the group chat, my father was a very famous football player in Scotland and actually played for Kilmarnock and then went to Motherwell, where Ian St. John came from before he went to Liverpool. So they played against each other. My dad and Ian were really good friends. So, of course, when I came down to Aston Villa, and at the time, Ian had obviously finished playing, and they had a television show called Saints and Greavesy with the famous Jimmy Greaves. And they were a real comedy act. It was really good. But it was a football show, talking about the games, it was almost like a mini Soccer Saturday before Soccer Saturday. Ridiculous. But just the 2 of them. And I won the goal of the season. And Saint came up to, or come down, he was probably living in Merseyside at the time. And he came down to Birmingham to give me my trophy, etc., etc. We did it on the pitch and all that. He was talking, how's your dad? And, and I was like, we talked about Liverpool, obviously, and, he's talking about, back in the day. And it was like, the likes of, I think of people like Frank McClintock and all the older people I've known. St. John was a great storyteller. just a brilliant storyteller. And he was a really, really lovely man. And when he gave me the trophy, they went back to the studio and Saints and Greavesy said, we'll put I don't actually know what they said, so we'll put on the screen exactly what it said because I don't know what language the 2 of them were speaking. And we were quite Scottish. And Saint and Greavesy was taking the mick as though it was just because it's him and I. And every time I met him, he was just the loveliest man. So it's a real loss. And when you think back on really, really good football teams, then Ian St. John was one of Liverpool's greatest ever players.
Oh, good stuff. Really good. I like that. It was a good feisty show. Lots of insight. That's what we want on the group chat, isn't it? I've got a first trip to Brentford's new ground this weekend. They're playing Rotherham at home. Yeah, I do. What I'd love Brentford to get up. I really would. Not just because it's great for me geographically around the corner, but I think the new stadium, Griffin Park, was great, wasn't it? With the 4 pubs in the corners and the fact that they've got that ground 100 metres away from where Griffin Park was. Such a shame that the fans haven't been back in there to enjoy it. But, I've obviously seen it on telly. And they would be good, wouldn't they, having them in the Premier League? The way that club has gone, the sort of director of football, the Moneyball signings, the signing players like Watkins that will just go for 25, 30 million quid, Ben Rama, 25 million pounds. It's an interesting model. I'm not quite sure if I'd like it as a fan, where you build up these huge players and you get the name on the back of the shirt, and then 4 months later they're out the door. And then Sunday I'm in the studio for a big Premier League weekend this weekend as well. I think we've got Alan Shearer in the studio with us on Sunday. Where are you? What are you doing Saturday?
Midweek, I'm at Sheffield Wed midweek. They've got a huge game against. So in fact, Big Darren Moore has just got the Sheffield Wednesday job, so it'd be good to see the big man. But he's got a big job there. They play Rotherham, which is it's almost a must-win game for them. Really, don't want.
Can he keep Sheffield Wednesday up? Do you think? That's a massive job, isn't it? Bearing in mind he could have gone to Wembley in the playoffs with Donny, couldn't he?
I know, yeah, and he did a good job with Donny, didn't he? To a certain extent, well, not to a certain extent, he did a good job with Donny. But this is a big job, and a club with a big support and huge expectation as well. Well, you forget about Sheffield Wed. I know they're in the position in the Championship, but still huge expectation. So we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, you're right. The weekend, I'm not sure yet. I think I might be in the studio again midweek, but there's a huge week of football. And when you're talking about Brentford, they have a humongous game at Carrow Road as well. So that maybe tell us whether or not they're in a position that they can, could they keep Ivan Toney if they get to the Premiership? Maybe they could.
Well, I mean, look, Norwich look like they're coming back, don't they? They're absolute fair play to Norwich. They haven't really made many signings as well, but Stuart Webber keeps doing it, doesn't he? And then, again, a bit like Brentford, these really interesting models in the Championship where their players will go. They'll lose Max Aarons this summer. They've already lost the likes of Godfrey. Can they keep on hold of Pookie? Fascinating model if you can do it, but it works. All right, good chat, Al. We'll speak next week, mate.
Thanks, Paul.